No.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the August 16, 2011 Village Council meeting. It's my privilege to call the meeting to order. There are agendas for the meeting, or there were agendas for the meeting on each side of the room. I see there's still some over on the north or the east side of the building there. So if you'd like to pick up an agenda and follow along with us tonight, there will be several occasions and opportunities for public comment, some on matters that are on our agenda and some matters that are of a more general nature. It is customary to begin our meetings by reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. So at this point in time, I would ask that everyone here please rise and join us in reciting the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you for joining us. And with that, I will ask our fine village clerk to please call the roll.
Commissioner Rankin? Here. Commissioner Barnett?
Here.
Commissioner Neustadt?
Here.
Commissioner Durkin?
Here.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Here.
Commissioner Schnell?
Here.
Mayor Tully?
Here. Thank you very much. Next item on our agenda has to do with minutes of prior council meetings. We have one set of minutes on the agenda for approval, council meeting minutes from August 9th, 2011. Are there any changes or corrections to those minutes? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve as submitted?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The minutes will be adopted as submitted. That brings us to item 4 on our agenda tonight. This is the section of our meeting where we entertain comments on general matters. These are comments on matters not with respect to items that are on our agenda for this evening. There will be an opportunity for that later on. Are there any questions or comments of a general matter that anyone would like to raise at this point in time? If so, we would ask that you please come down to the podium, give your name and your address, and we'd love to hear from you. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Dan Techman. I am the president of the Rotary Club of Downers Grove. I'm not a resident of Downers Grove. I live in Lamont, Illinois at 1124 Berkeley Lane.
We won't hold that against you.
Thank you. I do work in Downers Grove, and as I mentioned, I'm the president of the Rotary Club of Downers Grove. I'm here tonight because we recently involved ourselves in a bit of the storm cleanup in and around in the downtown Downers Grove area with the branches and some of the tree limbs that were down. And I just wanted to come before this fine group of individuals who represent the people of Downers Grove to kind of explain that one of the reasons why we did that is a big thank you for all of the support that we have received over the past year from the people of Downers Grove. And one of the reasons for Rotary to exist is to give back to the community that we're in. And we wanted to do that with this particular effort. And we followed it up as quickly as we could after Grove Festival, which we also were responsible for in downtown Downers Grove in June, as a quick way to say thank you to the community because there was such tremendous support. And we felt that support. So we wanted to do something very tangible to say our thank yous and to demonstrate that that support that we receive comes right back to the community. And that's really what we're all about, is putting that right back into the community. And that's what we did with this particular effort. And I'm joined by Keith Hoffman and Kent Ebersold, who are really the two individuals who kind of dreamed up the idea and jumped on it. The person that's not here is Mike's Tree Service. Mike's Tree Service is the individual who kind of stepped forward and really worked out a pretty fabulous deal for us to get the job done. And Mike is a 35-year resident of Downers Grove and was also looking for a way to kind of give back to the community. So for us, it was a match made in heaven, and we were happy to do it. And again, I just want to express our gratitude for all the support that we've received over the past year.
Well, thank you very much for coming here, and I'm sure my colleagues will feel free to weigh in as well, but on behalf of myself and my colleagues and the entire village, we really, really appreciate you are putting into action the motto of service above self, which you've demonstrated tenfold in these efforts. I mean, for those that may not know, we've obviously had a few windstorms in town lately, and they've caused considerable tree damage, and in some instances, the village has been able to, pursuant to its policy, assist with some tree debris pickup on private property. In this one instance, following the, I think it was the July 11th storm, that was not the case, unfortunately, and coming on so close as it did on the heels of the June 21st tornado event, there were some folks that put branches out even though it wasn't our practice or policy or within our means necessary to pick them up. And this is a fine example of the private sector, in this case a not-for-profit private sector, working with local government to really enhance the service provided to the community. And what a great way to give back in a way that everyone can see firsthand when they walk out their driveways and picking these up. So our thanks to you, and thanks to Mike's Tree Service for a truly wonderful gesture on behalf of this town. And I understand it was something like several hundred or a couple hundred. How many locations or sites were affected?
Yeah, I think it was a little
Lost
over...
count after 120?
Well, it's a little over 300. And what was really helpful was working with Dave Fieldman, helping identify a number of the more important areas that need to be taken care of. We do understand there are still areas, and we are going to be working with Mike's Tree Service to hopefully look at helping them out in the very near future. So,
Well, I think that's great, because I know in some instances, just anecdotally, they were individuals that might be elderly, living alone, and weren't necessarily able to address the situation themselves. So the fact that you were able to do that for those residents, I think, is truly spectacular. And again, what a way to demonstrate service above self. So thank you, and I'm sure if any of my colleagues want to speak, please go ahead, Commissioner Schnell.
Just a comment. I'm sure the residents that you helped are very appreciative of it. And just as a resident who is not helped but aesthetically has to look at the village, it certainly is nice to see a lot of those dying patches of trees gone. So I agree. It was a very unselfish gesture that you made to help the community, and it's truly appreciated. So thanks a lot for what you did.
glad we could help.
Commissioner Barnett?
Thank you, Mayor. We should be saying thank you to you guys, not only for the trees, certainly that was a huge effort, but if you go back a couple of years, some of the challenges we as a community faced overall through the village's organizations, we challenged everyone, internally, externally, organizations, individuals, and you guys jumped in spades. The Rotary, we talked about a lot of different things about what makes a community and what is a community and what does a community look like. Look at the Rotary is what I would say. From whether it's service above self as your motto, or it's the events that you guys put on like Crow Fest, or it's the charitable work that you've continued to do over the years. That's awesome. You guys are my definition of community, and really I want to say thank you to you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I echo the comments of my colleagues thus far, and probably additional comments. But while another aspect of this, which I think is important and a good credit to your organization, is that while it was going on, there wasn't a lot of publicity for it. It wasn't like we are doing this and, banners and signs, and it's just plain golden service is what it is, pure service. And that's much appreciated, and the way you went about it was just fabulous, too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Neustadt?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd also want to say thank you, but really using an approved Downers Grove resident and tree company is a great kind of combination and partnership. So thank you to Manager Fieldman for giving you the list of names that we use here in town and that other residents can use, but using a longtime resident in Mike's Tree Service here in town was a great way to also partner with the Rotary and keep the community spirit going. So again, thank you, and I know as Keith and others have said, we're going to try and get the rest of them, so let us know how we can help you with that, and again, thanks on behalf of the village.
We like to say that we were just chipping in for the community.
These guys do the play-by-play, you do the color commentary? Is that-
I couldn't stand up here and say
All right,
nothing.
well, I'm going to use mayoral prerogative and ask for a round of applause. Thank you very much. Thank you again. Other comments of a general nature? Ms. Frigo, how are you tonight? Welcome.
Partly sunny. Thanks, Mayor. Good evening. Chris Frigo, 1918 Elmore Avenue. I've been meaning to do this for a couple of weeks and missed my chance as I focus on other things. But I kind of wanted to acknowledge and thank you, and maybe if you'll allow me, address people in chambers and on television about the manager's report that's been appearing online in the last month or so. I don't know how many people have paid attention to it when they pull the agendas up and take a look and see what's happening, but as some of you know who have addressed non-agenda packets, and we talk a lot about transparency, and I think there were discussions last week with concerns about how different townships operate and how this village does. I just don't think I could feel better, or I think our residents could feel better about finding information about what's going on. The manager's report being online helps not only you, but all of us see the calendar, what work that's being performed this week, work that's planned for next week, the percentage of completion, what it costs, what the savings are, press releases, and while many might know that, I guess I just wanted to say thank you because I discovered it when I was out of town, and it was a very pleasant surprise. You might have addressed it while I was gone, and if so, I'm sorry, but I wanted to say from someone out in the peanut gallery, it is a tremendous, I think, plus, and thank you for putting that on there so that we can kind of see questions that you ask of staff, that they address, that so much goes on that helps us better understand the meeting. So I guess I just wanted to say thank you and acknowledge that it is being read and we appreciate it. So thank you for that.
Thank you for those comments. Any other questions or comments of a general nature? Well, thank you. Well, hearing none, that then brings us to number 5 on our agenda, public hearings. And we do in fact have a public hearing tonight. And I believe that I get to read the language. Wow. All right. The public hearing is with respect to Midwestern University's TEFRA bond hearing. This public hearing will please come to order. This public hearing has been called by the Village Council of the Village of Downers Grove to consider issuance by the Industrial Development Authority of the City of Glendale, Arizona, of its Industrial Development Authority of the City of Glendale, Arizona revenue bonds. Midwestern University Series 2011 in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $45 million with respect to facilities of the university located in the Village of Downers Grove. Notice of this hearing was published in the Downers Grove Reporter on August 3rd, 2011, and in the Chicago Tribune on August 2nd, 2011. The procedures for tonight's meeting will be as follows. First, there will be a presentation by Chris Walrath, attorney for Midwestern University, who will present information related to the bond issuance. Second, there will be opportunities for questions or comments from members of the Village Council. Third, there will be opportunity for questions and comments from members of the public. These may include either written or oral statements, so if you want to write them out real fast, go ahead, as well as any petitions or other documents or information relevant to the public hearing. Fourth, thereafter we will adjourn the public hearing. At this hearing, witnesses will not be sworn and a verbatim written transcript of the statements or testimony given at the hearing will not be prepared. However, a recording of the procedures will be made on village equipment and retained until minutes of the hearing have been prepared and approved by the Village Council. So at this point, we now open the floor up for a presentation by Mr. Walrath regarding the bond issuance, and he is a representative attorney for Midwestern University. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening. I think as we've talked about last year, we were before the council for a public hearing and an eventual resolution. We're doing the same thing this time. As I think people are aware, Midwestern University not only has a campus here in Downers Grove, but they maintain a campus in Glendale, Arizona. The City of Glendale, Arizona Industrial Development Authority has power pursuant to its organizing statutes to issue bonds for projects that are located within Glendale, Arizona, but also in other states. The Glendale Authority passed a bond resolution last week which authorized bonds in an amount not to exceed $50 million. Approximately $45 million of those bonds are going to be spent here in Downers Grove. And when I'm done in just a minute explaining why we have to have a TEFRA hearing here, Dr. Geppinger, who's the president of Midwestern University, will explain what those projects are all about on both campuses and answer any questions that the public or the council might have. The reason we have to have a hearing here in Downers Grove, even though Downers Grove isn't issuing any bonds and isn't liable on the bonds we're going to issue, is that federal tax law requires that a public hearing be held in any jurisdiction where we're spending tax-exempt bond proceeds. So even though the village of, the City of Glendale Industrial Development Authority is issuing these bonds, since proceeds are being spent here in Downers Grove, we have to allow the public to ask any questions, and we have to have a public hearing here. We're not asking the village to issue any bonds. The village's credit rating isn't going to be on the hook for these bonds. There really isn't any liability other than having this hearing. We're going to ask the village to adopt a resolution authorizing the issuance of bonds by the Glendale Authority at its meeting on September 6th. So there's no resolution being asked for adoption this evening. Any questions on the legal procedures?
Any questions or comments from any members of the village council?
Okay, at this point, I'd like to ask Dr. Geppinger to come up and she can address the real details of the project here in Downers Grove and answer any questions about the university.
While Dr. Geppinger is coming up, I'll just repeat for those who are taking notes in the audience that the village is not issuing any debt.
Thank you very much, Mayor and Commissioners. As I've come before you in the past, I'm here really just to explain the investment we continue to make in Downers Grove, both on our campus as well as our new campus that's going to be the clinical site. For the monies that you are going to be aware of for us spending here, it includes money for the basic science building, which is open, it's occupied, and there will be a dedication of that on the 30th of August. The parking deck expansion, which continues on campus, which is going to give us the amount of parking we need for both day-to-day use of students, faculty, and staff, as well as any special events. The Commons addition, it's an addition to the Student Center, and we had to expand the cafeteria and other offices for students. It was the purchase of the land for the clinic over at the Esplanade, and it also is for the preliminary work on the design of our dental clinic here in Downers Grove. So those are the projects that are part of this bond, and the university has a very, very strong financial position, so that not only is there not risk at all to Downers Grove, but the university has a very good bond rating because of our very favorable financial status. Fitch rates us A, and Standard & Poor rates us A-, very stable. So those are the ratings that we are very proud of and continue to maintain, and I would certainly take any question any of you may have about the campuses and our commitment to here at Downers Grove.
Thank you. Any questions from the council for Dr. Geppinger with respect to the merits of the bond issuance? I'll just add that I'd like to find more examples where we can have other communities issue debt so that we can have such fabulous facilities constructed in our community, and couldn't think of a nicer organization to have the benefit of them than Midwestern University.
Thank you very much, Mayor.
Thank you for coming and having your team here. It's always a pleasure to see you.
Thank you.
With that, are there any statements or questions from any members of the public with respect to this item? Hearing none. Any final questions or comments from any members of the Village Council with respect to this item? Hearing none, I will then close this public hearing officially. Thank you very much. Appreciate you coming down and explaining that to us. That then brings us to item 6 on our agenda, which is our consent agenda. And we have 2 items on our consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments from any members of the council? Any questions or comments from any members of the public with respect to the consent agenda? Hearing none, may I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Schnell?
Aye.
Commissioner Durkin?
Aye.
Commissioner Rankin?
Aye.
Commissioner Barnett?
Aye.
Commissioner Newstead?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye. Matter passes unanimously. That brings us to item 7 on our agenda tonight, which is our active agenda. We'll be taking most of these items separately, although the items related to annexation will be grouped together because they all relate to the same subject. But first, we'll deal with item 7A. Do I have a motion to approve an ordinance with respect to a final plan development amendment to plan development number 31 for additions to the existing parking garage and construction of a new 6-level parking garage?
So moved. Second.
Any questions or comments from any members of the council? Commissioner Durkin.
Yeah, I do. Thank you, Mayor. I know last week I had asked about a letter of recommendation or support from the Economic Development Corporation. Going through the green sheets, I didn't see any comment about that or under updated recommendations.
We did receive that. It was distributed today. It was received on Monday, distributed in the Tuesday information. It's posted online. It's a very positive endorsement of expansion of parking at this address.
Do we get copies of that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would characterize it as a ringing.
Oh, it's online.
It's
though,
online.
So I was looking for a hard copy.
Yeah,
That's fine. Thank you.
I think it'd be fair to say that it could be characterized as a ringing endorsement,
I'm sure it is.
particularly some of the commentary that I saw associated with it. Certainly, pass that to Commissioner Durkin, please. Did you have any other comments at the moment, Commissioner Durkin? Otherwise, I'll move to Commissioner
No, that's it.
Schnell.
I support this, and
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Schnell.
I will not be supporting this, and it's not that I don't support the Esplanade, I do, and I have over the years that I've sat up here. I just feel that the variances that are being requested are excessive, and that they can be precedent-setting, and I cannot support that. Also, having walked the site and drove the site today, it's so tight as it is. I just think this is going to be making it overly tight, and I can't in all good conscience vote for it, so I will be voting no.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you. Commissioner Waldeck.
Thank you, Mayor. Last week, I know I had voiced concerns about the rather large variances, and that there were no definite plans in the works to actually build, and where this could possibly come before us annually for approvals. And I was also concerned about the Forest Preserve's concerns, their approach to the, they opposed the variances as well. And after the presentation, and the reason why we have workshops is so that we can discuss these things, that we can review the materials and ask questions. And my questions were pretty well answered last week. I recognize the fact that these are huge variances, and I think the presentation and the intervening week, I decided that under the circumstances, these are acceptable in this instance. And I will be supporting this measure after all. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Newstead.
Thank you, Mayor. Just quickly, I will be supporting this tonight as well. I think the use of variances when appropriate is a good tool for our Economic Development Corporation as well as our businesses in town to keep attracting and retaining, maybe more importantly in this case, retaining the fine businesses that call Downers Grove home. So I will be in full support of this amendment tonight.
Thank you, Commissioner. Frankly, I can't think of anything to add to the comments that I made last week, so I won't. Those are as of record. I am, of course, no surprise in support of this. Are there any questions or comments from any members of the audience with respect to this item? Hearing none, I'll go back to the council. Commissioner Durkin.
And I appreciate that opportunity, Mayor.
No worries.
After reviewing this, one of the things that I do want to point out, and just for the public that's watching and will be listening for future podcasts, Sara Lee does occupy 75% of this building. And the real thing behind here is with Sara Lee in the news and not knowing if they're going to continue calling Downers Grove home, for this building to maintain an A-level status and to maintain its competitive nature for future tenants, it's imperative that, in my opinion, that this is supported, and based on what I hear, it will, but I just want to make sure that this is really to keep Downers Grove and this building competitive with the surrounding communities, especially with 75% occupancy by one tenant. If they were to leave, there drastically could be a parking issue. So I appreciate that opportunity to make that clarification, Mayor. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Commissioner. With that, I will ask for a roll call, please.
Commissioner Durkin?
Aye.
Commissioner Newstead?
Aye.
Commissioner Rankin? Aye. Commissioner Barnett?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Aye.
Commissioner Schnell?
Nay.
Mayor Tully?
Aye. Matter passes 6-1. That brings us to our next item on the active agenda, which is 7B as in boy. Do I have a motion to approve an ordinance amending liquor serving hours?
Mayor Tully, I move to adopt an ordinance amending liquor serving hours as presented.
Second.
Any questions or comments from any members of the council? Any questions or comments from any members of the audience on this item? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Commissioner Newstead?
Aye.
Commissioner Barnett?
Aye.
Commissioner Rankin? Aye. Commissioner Durkin?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Aye.
Commissioner Schnell?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye, matter passes unanimously. That brings us to item 7C as in Charlie. Do I have a motion to amend the Downtown Special Service Area Operations Agreement with Downtown Downers Grove, Inc.?
Mayor, Tully, I motion to adopt a resolution authorizing execution of amendment to the Downtown Special Service Area Operations Agreement between the Village of Downers Grove and Downtown Downers Grove Incorporated as presented.
Second.
Any questions or comments from any members of the council? Commissioner Newstadt.
Thank you, Mayor. As I was absent last week, I just have a couple of quick comments. I will be supporting this amendment. I think that the Downers Grove Management Corporation is an integral part of our community. Time and time again in our strategic planning, we identify the downtown as the authentic center of our town, and I think we need to continue to promote our downtown. Right now, the shopper traffic is high, the occupancy rate for retail and office space is very high, and that's in large part to the fine work done by the Downtown Management Corporation. As the council liaison to the Downtown Management Board, I've seen firsthand the activities that they have undertaken to try to raise money and are being successful in some degrees, and some degrees they aren't. This amendment will let the Downtown Management Corporation and its board continue to manage their budget and have and hold the fine events that they have in our downtown, including some new events that we'll be talking about very soon here for our winter months, as well as the traditional events like the Arts Festival, Ice Carving Festival, Friday night car shows, and all the fine events that we have all come accustomed to. I do want to make one more quick comment about events. I don't foresee, and in a conversation with the downtown manager, Ms. Kunze, I don't believe there will be any extra events added because of this amendment to the agreement. There is a lot of work that goes into these events, and the Downtown Management Corporation does a great job to schedule events with the board and the marketing committee at different seasons and times throughout the year. So as the plan stands now, there will still be events in the downtown. This amendment will significantly help to create those events and keep downtown management's budget moving in the positive direction. So thank you for that little bit longer explanation, as I was absent last week, Mayor.
No problem at all. Commissioner Waldeck.
Thank you, Mayor. As I stated last week, I oppose charging fees for nonprofits for the events, and to do so is detrimental and divisive. I think it should apply across the board, including the Downtown Downers Grove, Inc. I also voiced last week a concern about downtown management partnering with business ventures and using the waiver status as a ways to get fees waived in for-profit events. My suspicion was rather glossed over, but I took the week and reviewed the minutes of past meetings, and apparently that's exactly what I think what happened in April of 2010 when an event partnership was nearly formed with a for-profit business. In the manager's answers last week and the April 2010 minutes, the CEC clearly there was a concern for the fees, and as a result, the event never took place. So as I indicated, I think we need some protected language if this was to go through to prevent partnership with for-profit businesses in order to avoid paying the fees. Also, while I found last week's arguments referencing the contract to be persuasive, I didn't really find them compelling enough, and they are subject to interpretation and degree. Whereas other groups do not have to report financial impacts such as revenue, we could be exempting the Downtown Downers Grove Inc. from fees, costing the taxpayers money while the organization shows a profit for the event. We may obligate them to hold events, but if those events are profitable, should the taxpayers still pick up the bill? Also, while there's an obligation to hold events, the organization also receives taxpayer dollars to hold those events and is obligated to budget for them. So I believe our relationship and our contract with our residents does take a higher priority, and when the council decided to start charging, those rules should apply and should continue to universally apply across the board until such time as they are reversed. As far as the chargeback policy is concerned, I would support a change that would credit a not-for-profit event organizer for any tax revenues generated. Some events, such as walks and runs, probably do not generate much in the way of sales tax, whereas events such as street fairs may actually generate tax revenue. And I think in those cases, I would be totally supportive of crediting organizations that do raise sales tax revenue. Otherwise, I would support reviewing the contract, looking at the expense and revenues with the Downtown Downers Grove, Inc., as I mentioned last week, and my previous attempts in the past few months to open a dialogue have so far been unsuccessful. Maybe that conversation can now take place and we can move forward and look at the overall contract and do right by the downtown management, but not in this particular instance. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Schnell.
Just a couple comments. One, I do support the Downtown Management Corporation. I think Linda does a great job, and I think the events that she has for the downtown are great. I, however, do have a problem with having the fee waiver having the fee waiver waived for the downtown and not for other not-for-profits. I think it should be applied evenly. I would prefer, as I said last week, to really reopen the whole discussion with the Downtown Management Corporation and look for other ways perhaps to either cost cut or work with them to help them to do their mission downtown. But as I just have a real problem with waiving these and not waiving some others. So I think it should be consistently applied, and in this case, I don't think it would be consistently applied. So I will be voting no.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Durkin?
No change from last week. I will be supporting this wholeheartedly and think that this is a partnership and an oversight when we pass this ordinance that we didn't address back when we discussed it, especially in highlight of what you had pointed out last week regarding the contractual agreement that we have with the Downtown Management Corp. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Barnett?
Thank you, Mayor. I want to try and clarify a little bit some of my positions and points from last week. I agree mostly with Commissioner Waldeck and Commissioner Schnell on this subject, because for me it's a longer-term structural question, and this resolution tonight that changes the contract permanently feels a little bit like a Band-Aid. I recognize and appreciate the fact that downtown management needs access to this money quickly. I would submit that contract that we've all been throwing around here already sort of provides for that by specifically identifying that they may seek a waiver. I would much have preferred to have a waiver request, which we didn't have, and to have judged that on its merits at the current time, which is where I think most people up here recognize that we do in fact need to get into this subject in much greater detail from a much longer term standpoint. That's not what's before us, and as such, because my goal here is to make decisions that I think treat everybody equitably and that provide for long-term sustainability and predictability, I think that this doesn't do that, and so I'm going to be not supporting this tonight. But as several of my colleagues have said, I really hope that we start talking about this longer term, because Commissioner Neustadt is exactly right when he talks about the quality of work and the quantity of work and the effectiveness of that organization. I can't imagine a situation where we as a community, we as a village government would not want to continue to support and increase the support that we provide to that organization. It's a question of how to go at that in the moment, where I think there's some differences, and so respectfully I will be not supportive of this tonight, but I will be hounding my colleagues and hounding staff and hounding downtown management to get into this in greater detail sooner rather than later, so that there is a longer term plan, so that 5 years out or 6 years out or 10 years out, which is what we've got remaining in some of our fixed situations, we've got real increases in support for that organization. So that's where I'm at last week, and I'm still there. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Neustadt, another comment?
Thank you, Mayor. Just quickly, Commissioner Waldeck made one comment about the profitability of events in the downtown. I just, maybe a clarification from Commissioner Waldeck, but the events that are organized by downtown management are designed to promote the downtown and to promote the businesses downtown. Those are the entities that do potentially make a profit by sales tax generation and sales. Thus, the village makes a profit and everybody's happy because we generate some sales. So I just want to make sure that that's really clear, that the Downtown Management Corporation does not profit from any of these events. In most cases, they outlay the money folks come down, enjoy the events, and shop and have foot traffic in our downtown. That's the goal of the different kinds of events in our downtown. And the comment about the for-profit business with downtown management, I was chairman of the Community Events Commission at that time, and yes, indeed, Emmett's Ale House had considered partnering with downtown management. Emmett's made their choice on their own to not hold an event for many different circumstances and reasons. And I think as the conversation I had with downtown manager Kunze, that isn't going to be an option for for-profit businesses in the future regarding this amendment change. Thank you, Mayor.
Commissioner Rankin.
Well, I supported this last week, and I haven't changed my decision. Mr. Neustadt reiterated a lot of the comments that I was going to express as being a part of the Community Events Commission. I was there when the Emmett's project was before us, and as I remember it, I think that downtown management was involved almost just to ease them through the process, not necessarily to ask for any types of fee waivers, because at that point, that wasn't an option for downtown management as well. So I will be supporting it.
Thank you, Commissioner. I won't reiterate. Commissioner Barnett.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to say one more thing. If I've appeared to the audience or my colleagues or downtown management as overly negative in this conversation, I'm sorry for that. It's downtown as an organization, downtown as an entity, downtown physically as a part of our community is just a really big deal to me. And I'd like very much nothing more than for us to come up with an arrangement that causes them to be stronger down the road. And so none of my comments should be interpreted as, skeptical about what they might choose to do down the road or anything along those lines. I'm feeling a little frustration because I'd like to do better by them, if you will. So just hopefully everybody understands that if I was unclear.
Thank you, Commissioner. I won't repeat what I said last week. I spoke at length as to the reasons why I think this amendment is perfectly appropriate, in fact, overdue. And it boils down to this. It's the difference between, and it's an important distinction, it's not splitting hairs, it actually means something. There's an important difference between a waiver and an exemption. Yes, there are many organizations that always have the ability to seek a waiver of fees of various different types from the village, and we have policies and protocols and case-by-case analyses that deal with that. I don't even see this as in that same sphere of discussion. This is simply put a question of exemption, because this is an organization that is in many respects an extension of the village and one that we contractually obligate to do things and fund them to do it. So to potentially calculate and apply fees against them and then make them come to us for a waiver, I think just doesn't make a whole lot of logical sense, and in fact probably shouldn't have been structured that way in the original agreement. I think that the statement that they are exempt from these fees is more appropriate, because it would be sort of like exempting the village from any fees associated with the 4th of July parade. And I'm exaggerating to make a point, but that's sort of the logic behind my thinking. That said, and I think everyone up here has said it in one way or the other, the question of what is the proper relationship and funding going forward with respect to the Downtown Management Corporation, given what we now know and what we foresee coming in the future, is an entirely appropriate conversation. And each one of my colleagues that has suggested that we look at that sooner than later, I think is absolutely right to do so. And we should. And there may be other questions involved in that, but this is a very narrow and straightforward issue as far as I'm concerned in terms of these particular fees. And in that respect, I think it distinguishes dispositively the Downtown Management Corporation from any other not-for-profit that might come to us and request a fee waiver. And that's why I view this as an exemption, not a waiver. The interesting thing that comes to my mind, and I think Commissioner Neustadt sort of had the same reaction that I did, and I'm certain Commissioner Rankin did too, when Commissioner Waldeck was speaking about partnering with not-for-profits to do things that the village might benefit from or the community might benefit from. And that sounds to me an awful lot like what the Community Events Commission used to do. And if, to the extent that there are opportunities for the village to partner with not-for-profits in a way that doesn't cost the village but actually results in a net gain for the community as well as for that organization, by all means, I think we should explore those. So if we have those opportunities, let's look at doing them, or at least considering them. But of course, given the current economic environment, the village being in the business of actually operating events was something that was decided was no longer something that we should be doing, but there still may be room for facilitating events and partnering with not-for-profits in a way that results in a net gain for the community and a net gain for the village. But that's immediately what came to my mind when I heard those comments. So other than that, the same reasons why I'm in support of this, I stated at length last week and won't repeat any further. Are there any questions or comments from anyone in the audience with respect to this item? Mr. Swimmer, how are you?
Good, how are you? Long time no see.
Any day that I see you twice in one day is a good one.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I'm involved with the Lions Club. We do a lot for the community. I'm also a business owner in the downtown area, and I'm a property owner, and I support the downtown business community. I always have, and I will continue to do that. I kind of agree that if in one hand you say that what the downtown Linda Kunze's organization does benefits the businesses, which it surely does, no question about it. Business seems to be good in downtown Downers Grove. Most of the stores are occupied. You don't see a lot of changeover from one business to another. You do see some, like in any community, but you don't see a lot of vacant stores. And that's wonderful. I mean, the businesses are hopefully putting some money aside at the end of the year, and that's great. So there's some relationship between nonprofit and profit here. With the Lions Club and with the Rotary Club, I don't think there's that closeness of profit and nonprofit, but yet we have to continue to pay fees. And I know when the village first passed this about the fees, probably 2 years ago, the Lions Club, there was a lot of controversy in there. We were upset about it. We have a downtown Halloween parade. We pay several $100s in fees for that. The kids come out. We don't get anything for it. We just kind of give to the community. We have give me a chance to plug a 5K race we're having on Labor Day at McCollum Park, which is a great event. We're going to pay fees for that. So I would like to, and this will pass, and I know it will pass. I could just see see what's taking place, and that's fine. But I would like the village to maybe think about waiving maybe a certain amount of fees for viable nonprofits. It doesn't necessarily have to be all the fees, but maybe a certain percent each year, or a certain dollar amount each year, maybe $500 that the village might absorb for maybe the Lions Club or the Rotary. Just kind of a token of saying, we appreciate you guys for doing what you're doing. Your new teacher's luncheon that the Lions Club had today, or the Rotary with their tree service. We kind of appreciate it. So we're going to, kind of cut back on some of the fees. So anyways, just my thoughts for what they're worth. And
Thank you, Mr. Swimmer. And that's actually a separate policy that was enacted within the last couple of years in terms of the fees and charging. But with respect to any fees, there's always been an opportunity for an entity to request a waiver, and there are some policies that dictate when they're appropriate and when they're not. And as you say, they're not always appropriate, they're not always appropriate in the full amount. That opportunity remains, I think, and the question is whether and under what circumstances that might be appropriate and what is feasible, quite frankly. Again, just as long as we're kind of digressing from the item on the agenda, to the extent that there are opportunities for the village to facilitate or partner with not-for-profits in conducting events that have a net gain to the village and to the community, that might be something that overcomes the financial challenge. But again, I think it comes down to whether the case can be made such that it makes sense. And I know that's a real tough standard I have, making sense, but it's worked for a long time, and I hope it continues to work. So thank you for your comments. Any other questions or comments from members of the audience with respect to this item? Hearing none, roll call, please. This is the first time I'm going to break a tie, isn't it?
Commissioner Durkin?
Aye.
Commissioner Neustadt?
Aye.
Commissioner Rankin?
Aye.
Commissioner Barnett?
Nay.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Nay.
Commissioner Schnell?
Nay.
Mayor Tully?
Aye. Matter passes 4-3.
History's made.
I don't know about history, but that brings us to
First tiebreaker, right?
at least of this composition of the village council. That's right. That brings us to items D as in David through U as in umbrella on our active agenda. And as mentioned earlier, because all these items have to do with the annexation of parcels into the village of Downers Grove, We will be dealing with them in one motion. So, and then obviously we will take any comments from the council and from the audience on any one of these annexations all at once. Because I'm just giving everyone a heads up in that respect. So do I have a motion to adopt ordinance 00-04601 through ordinance 00-04618, otherwise known as the annexation ordinances that appear on our active agenda as items 7, D as in David, through U as an umbrella?
Mayor Tully, I move to adopt ordinance number 4601 through ordinance number 4618, annexing certain territories to the village of Downers Grove.
Second.
Any questions or comments from any members of the council? I'm just going to really briefly say something that I said at the end of our last workshop meeting on this, and this isn't going to necessarily be of any comfort to anyone, but it's sort of an explanation of the process. Before, I know Commissioner Rankin and I were on this council about 2 years ago, I believe. A process was undertaken by the prior council, most of the members of which are still here, to look at long-term solutions with respect to the financial stability of the village of Downers Grove. That's all 49,000 residents. As well as those who are visitors and businesses within our community. And there were a variety of different solutions that were looked at. And there are those here who can speak to those in more detail than I can because they were here and I wasn't. But I was keeping tabs and have certainly caught up. But there were a number of different difficult decisions that were made in order to do that. And I think people need to understand, and some of my colleagues will correct me if I understate it, but the first thing that was done was cuts in the millions of dollars to the overall expenses of the village. So this was not something that wasn't done until after there was a serious look at reducing expenses within this organization. And then after that, there was still a challenge that needed to be overcome, and that required looking at various different strategies to maintain the long-term economic stability of this community. This annexation project, if you will, is only one part of it. And it is a long-term plan that was embarked upon about 2 years ago, and I understand, and in fact was aware of a number of meetings and discussions that took place both here and out in the community, as well as special meetings that were conducted by standing committees solely devoted to this topic. And we had an election there in the middle of that process. And basically where we're at now is we're at the end of a 2-year process. And I understand and respect, and we've listened and heard to those who are not yet residents of the village of Downers Grove with respect to their differing views, and obviously those who are against it are the ones that speak out the most. We don't hear as much from people who want to come in, but we understand that. But this is, I just want you to know, again, not something I'm saying to give you any comfort, but it is something that this is sort of the end of a process that started before some of us were even up here, and we're now bringing it through to its conclusion. So we have heard you, and obviously, considering how the vote goes tonight, it hasn't been taken yet, but it is a long process, and we're looking forward to welcoming you into the community, but we understand that for some of you, it's being done with some trepidation. That is understood and appreciated. So with that, I'll ask if there are any questions or comments from anyone in the audience with respect to any of the proposed annexations. Please, sir, if you want to make your way down to the podium and give us your name, please, and your address, I would appreciate it. And I don't think we'll have an issue tonight about too many people who aren't actually residents of the affected properties. So I won't ask those to go first or whatnot. I'll just let you go, sir. Welcome. Thank you for coming. And if you could please have your name and your address.
Preston Straub, 7318-2 Winthrop Way.
Welcome, sir.
Hi. I was here last week, made some comments. I just had a couple of things I wanted to say. I don't know that it can change anything, but you seem to indicate that people that are in favor of it aren't here. I disagree with that. But on our situation, I would ask that maybe the village defer our annexation. I don't see petitions to join Downers Grove. Not that I'm opposed to it. I'm just concerned from a financial standpoint for those people in that area. $100 to them, I think, is like $1,000 to you. And the only other thing I would say is I would like to have assurances, as the village manager stated last week, of our life safety issue with the 2 fire departments. And I would further really like to see the village, if it wants to show good intentions, is helping us get our water lines dedicated. that little property's been mismanaged for the better part of 40 years. And I think that would speak volumes to show them people that you do care. So, and that's about all I have to say.
Appreciate your comments, sir. Thank you for coming and sharing those with us.
Thanks for letting me speak.
Any other questions or comments from anyone with respect to the annexations that are proposed tonight? Seeing none, roll call, please. And we are voting on all of the annexations in one motion.
Commissioner Schnell?
Aye.
Commissioner Durkin?
Aye.
Commissioner Rankin?
Aye.
Commissioner Barnett?
Aye.
Commissioner Newstead?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye. Each of the matters passes unanimously. And again, I know some of you, this may not give you a lot of comfort, but when it's effective, we do welcome you to the Village of Downers Grove. That brings us to item 8 on our agenda, which is our first reading. This is normally our workshop part of the meeting where we discuss matters that will be voted on at a later date. We have no items under this part of the agenda tonight, which then takes us to item 9, which is the mayor's report. And I have one item I want to report out on. As I've promised, I will be reporting out on this until there's no need to report on it anymore, which I suspect will be for some time. And that is our continuing efforts to work with ComEd with respect to reliability issues, electricity reliability issues within the Village of Downers Grove. Just 2 quick things to report as a follow-up to earlier reports. I understand that we are tentatively looking at Thursday, September 15th for a town hall meeting to discuss ComEd reliability issues as they affect the Village of Downers Grove. We are hoping to have not only a good turnout from residents, but also from elected officials at the local, county, and hopefully state level, as well as senior representatives from ComEd itself. So that's something that once we finalize that and firm it up, that we will be promoting and advertising so that those who wish to come down and speak to that collective body of individuals will have an opportunity to do so. The other item to report out is that our own reliability report that we are preparing that will help identify the, as I've called them, hot spots throughout town, some of which we're well aware of, but this report will help us to quantify in an objective manner areas that are particularly deserving of attention from ComEd. That reliability report should be completed by the end of August.
Correct.
And is there anything else to add to that, Mr. Fieldman?
That's it, Mayor.
All right, thank you very much. So that's all I have under the mayor's report, which then brings us to the manager's report.
No report tonight, Mayor.
Goes right to the attorney's report.
And I do not have a report either.
Thank you. And before we go to council member reports and new business, we will be adjourning, after we adjourn here, we will be going next door to the committee room to continue our discussions of the comprehensive plan, which is something that I think all residents of Downers Grove necessarily have an interest in. So item 12 on our agenda are council member reports and new business. I'll start at the left this week with Commissioner Barnett.
I have nothing, Mayor.
Thank you. Commissioner Durkin?
I have nothing. I figured you'd...
Okay,
You
fine,
mentioned-
very good.
You can have your lunch.
Feel free, Commissioner Snell.
I just want to thank the New Lions for hosting, once again, the new teachers' luncheon. It was great to meet some of the new teachers and to meet acquaintances, old and new acquaintances from the Lions Club. And as usual, they do a great job, and it was a fun affair. So thank you. Send our thank yous down to the organization, and good luck with your run.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Newstead.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a few things. This past Sunday, the Downtown Management Corporation, the Public Library, and many of our longtime residents participated in the Downers Through the Decades kind of symposium. Willis Johnson, Dwayne Baker, John Mokel, and Montrew Dunham got together for a couple hours on Sunday at the library and gave us a great history, including some photographs that aren't on display downtown of our history here in Downers Grove. It was fun to watch, and they did a great job in their presentation. I'm sorry Mr. Johnson already excused himself from the meeting tonight, but it was a great event. A few weeks back, I was fortunate enough to participate in a live fire training with the Downers Grove Fire Department over at 2nd and Cumner. It is truly an experience that I won't forget. The firemen and women of Downers Grove and all of our surrounding communities put themselves in danger every day for us. And even in a training, running into a house that's on fire is intense, and it's hot and it's smoky, of course, but being in there and seeing how they work and how they use their equipment really does help me as a council member understand what we do when we budget dollars and cents for their department. Last but not least, on our webpage at downers.us, you can check out the calendar of events on the bottom tab. An upcoming event sponsored by your village is the Child Safety Seat Check. It will be on August 27th at 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. over at District 58 Administration Building at 1860 63rd. Certified child safety seat technicians will be assisting and helping you make sure your child seat is installed correctly and/or installing a seat for you. It's a great service that the Downers Grove Police Department puts on at least once a year. So for all those new parents and even old parents, I know I usually go and check out my car seats to make sure they're all in there the right way. And it's a great event to make sure our littlest residents are safe. And that's all I have, Mayor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Rankin.
I'd like to take a moment to plug the Grove Foundation. They're another group of do-gooders in town. They're having their 19th annual golf outing on September 10th. So if you'd like to come out, the information is at www.thegrovefoundation.org. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Waldeck.
And I have no report, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Well, that brings it down to me. I have three things very quickly. Number one, I want to thank U.S. Representative Judy Biggert, who came to the village earlier this week, or actually it was last week. Time flies when you're having fun. But it was really a pleasure to have her and her staff come visit us because it gave us an opportunity to showcase some of the sustainable energy and materials projects that the village has going on, and couldn't be happier with some of the presentations that were given. They're really quite impressive. And reminds one, because these things don't get celebrated enough, I think, as they should be, in terms of some of the leading edge cool things that the village is involved in, such as compressed natural gas vehicles, which we've been doing for some time, but also recycling used cooking oil for biodiesel fuel within some of our vehicles, and the solar and wind-powered streetlights over in the Prentice Creek area. A lot of really neat projects that the village is really, I think, in the cutting edge of in terms of demonstrating what can be done. And of course, we also made sure to remind our representative that a lot of these were made possible by federal grants, and just goes to show you that if a municipality is given a little bit of assistance, they can take it a long way, because in many respects, municipalities are truly the incubators of innovation in our society. And I was really impressed with staff and the presentations and some of the things that they're able to do when given the opportunity to do so. So kudos to everyone, and thank you once again. I know I learned a great deal. The second item I also want to add is with respect to the Downers Grove Newton Lions Club annual Teachers Luncheon. I mean, it truly is a storied and wonderful tradition to welcome all the new teachers to District 58 and District 99. And as I mentioned at the luncheon that Commissioner Schnell, Commissioner Durkin, Commissioner Rankin, and Commissioner Neustadt were at, our schools and educational systems are so deeply ingrained in the very fabric of this community, and without which we wouldn't be able to brand ourselves with the identity that we have quite as successfully. It truly is wonderful that the Newton Lions have established that tradition, and want to also thank the Moose Lodge for hosting the event, another fine organization, but just showing you how different organizations, not-for-profits, partner with the community and with government to really make all those new teachers really feel part of our community. And of course they give back to our kids every day in the schools. But it's also always quite impressive to me how many teachers were products of the District 58 and District 99 systems themselves, and then they come back here to teach, and how many people who are students in those education systems will end up perhaps leaving for a while, but then they see the error of their ways and they come back to Downers Grove. And that is a big statement about the feeling of community in this town, and also the quality that we all perceive it has. So that's always a wonderful occasion, and I appreciated very much the opportunity to be part of it. Last but not least, I believe that speaking of community and communication, we do have a Coffee with the Council coming up this Saturday at the Main Street train station, just adjacent to the downtown market, which will be taking place as it usually does on Saturday morning. Coffee with the Council will be from 9 a.m. until 10 a.m. So if you'd like to come down and see some of your elected representatives in a little bit more casual attire and support the farmers market, we'd be happy to see you and take your questions, comments, and concerns. And every now and then we get a compliment, so I particularly look out for those. So that's all I have. With that, then I'll ask for a motion to adjourn, and we are adjourning into the committee room next door to continue the conversation, the comprehensive plan.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Schnell?
Aye.
Commissioner Durkin?
Aye.
Commissioner Rankin?
Aye.
Commissioner Barnett?
Aye.
Commissioner Newstead?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Aye.
Mayor Kelly?
Aye, we are adjourned to next door. Thank you very much, and for those of you watching at home, good night.